I'm Jan Perry, and I'm here with Councilmember Tony Cardenas. And today is January the 31st, 2012. We are in room 1010. It's about quarter after. Apologize for the late start. I do want to say a few quick words before we get into the meat of what we're meeting about today. I want to say thank you, first of all, to the staff who are sitting here. First of all, to my right, Jeff Catalano, who's my environmental senior deputy on my particular staff, to the Chief Legislative Analyst's office, and to the City Clerk's office, to Rafael Prieto, Charles Modica, Maria Espinosa, and Adam Lidd. And I really, really want to say thank you, a public thank you to all of them. I have served as chair of this committee since 2003. It has been tumultuous and engaging and just an incredible experience, the work we have done together, and that includes all the folks who are sitting here in the room in the Department of Water and Power, and now Ron Nichols, and the staff that he has. We've done significant work for a number of reasons. New legislation, advocacy for transparency, to build a stronger relationship with our community advocates and our stakeholders and neighborhood councils, to protect the ratepayers, and for oversight and the due diligence that the council has to bear as part of this process. Of course, nobody does this job alone, and even though we're the public servants or the politicians or the elected officials or whatever you want to call us, we don't do this alone. There's always a team behind us. And so by taking this moment and recognizing and thanking, and also thank you to my colleagues on the committee and Mr. Cardenas, who is known for his incisive and probative questions and always fighting on behalf of fairness for the people that he's elected to represent. Thank you very much, Mr. Cardenas, and I'll say a blanket thank you for those who will be here soon. But to thank them for their work and their perseverance, and again to Raphael and to Charles and to Maria and to Adam, and also to the Chief Administrative Office, and their willingness to report and to collaborate with the Chief Legislative Analyst's Office, and to ITA for their technical support, and to the Department of General Services for shushing everybody in a very nice way. There's nobody who shushes better. Take a bow if you'd like. Thank you. So this has been great, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter. And I want to say thank you. And Mr. Cardenas would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I echo the respect and admiration that you have and we all have for our staff at every level in this building. A lot of experienced professionals here, but it's one thing to have the talent and it's another thing to exude it. So I just want to thank the staff for all of your good work. And in addition to that, I just want to thank you, Chairwoman, for handling the business of this committee as the Chairwoman in a way that's professional and responsible. And one of the things that I want to say about you is that you work very hard for your district, yet at the same time you don't lose the perspective of you have a responsibility to the district you were elected to, but overall our number one responsibility is to make sure that we do what's best for the city as a whole. And chairing the committee that oversees the activities and responsibilities of the largest Department of Water and Power in the country, and I think perhaps the most progressive Department of Water and Power in the country. I think it's not an easy job, and I think that you made it look easy, and that you've done a wonderful job, and I'm sure that whatever chairmanships hold for us in the near future, I'm sure you're going to do as well a job there. Thank you.
Thank you. We're joined by Mr. Labange.
And I just got back about up in the Hollywood Hills to Lake Hollywood, working with the community on a variety of issues. And I was briefed by your great staff. We each have an opportunity to serve in a variety of roles, and you certainly did a wonderful job as the leader here, especially in many transitional points for the Department of Water and Power and new sources for power and energy. So I thank you, Jan, personally.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Krikorian has joined us. I thank the staff and people who helped us on this committee, and recognize them for their contributions, because nobody does this job alone. All right. So with that, we have the one and only item.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Ralph here, Operator with the CLA's office. Item number 1, Department of Water and Power report relative to proposed water quality improvement adjusted factor and related modifications. This item also includes a CAO and CLA report, which also includes third-party review by PA Consulting.
Madam Chair and committee members, appreciate your time here this morning. You'll recall that last summer we spent many days before the public talking about our overall water rate requirements, and a major piece of our upcoming costs is our compliance with safe drinking water standards. That certainly from any water system that serves customers, safe drinking water is the top priority. It has to be safe to deliver it, has to be safe to serve the requirements and protect the health of our customers. We have a number of programs that we've been working through as part of a long-term compliance plan with the California Department of Public Health, that's who enforces federal EPA safe drinking water standards. And we have held a number of those projects literally to the brink while we have waited to come before you here today on getting an incremental adjustment to our water quality factor solely for the purpose of meeting our water quality program requirements. There are a number of items that we have deferred, as I think you're probably aware. This is one we can no longer do, and that's why we're here today. And so the issue is, in light of where things are with now just on the verge of confirmation, I assume, of a ratepayer advocate, why are we talking about a special water quality factor here today and now? And I think it's an important issue. The current rates that we have simply don't support the commitments that we need to go forward. We're going to award approaching $600 million of contracts in the next 9 months. And it starts with the Headworks Reservoir, and the Headworks Reservoir is the first piece that is of a number of projects that stay on track with a compliance plan that Jim McDaniel and the water system have worked out with California Department of Public Health. That first contract is about a $230 million contract. We awarded the contract first phase of that in December with our board, and that's with a contract we call a construction management at risk contract. In other words, there's a master consortium, and then subcontracts are let out. That first subcontract will be let out about the end of March. And presently, we don't have funds to pay for that. And we don't believe that we can step further down the road on making capital expenditures before we have the funds to do that. There are subsequent projects here on the LA Reservoir and on completing the bypass tunnel of Silver Lake, and the various river supply conduits that cumulatively add up to a very major sum, but all in the next 9 months. We'll have to go through those commitments. So the proposal that you have before you today, the drinking water quality rate adjustment proposal, is to increase the Tier 1 water rate by 35 cents per billing unit. That's per 100 cubic feet. And also, we have a quarterly cap. And as I think those of you who have dealt with our water rates before, they are less than clear. I'll be first to admit that. That is something we will also be changing, but not with this today. So it eliminates, we have a quarterly limit on the water quality factor, so we would eliminate that 6 cent per quarter, add a 35 cent total rate to that, and then we would increase our Tier 2 rates by 35 cents. And the reason that's separate, and again, this is part of our structure right now, is the water quality rate is actually embedded in the base rate for our Tier 2 customers. It is an add-on to our pass-through to our Tier 1 customers. So we're adjusting them both as kind of a rough approach to approximate the same amount of payment being made by both our Tier 1 and our Tier 2 customers. That will give us about $29 million for the balance of this current fiscal year and about $79 million next year added into our rates. What that means is an overall projected customer bill impact of about $1.71 per month above where it is today. It's about 2.9% across all customers, 3.2% for the average residential customer increase between where we started in fiscal year 11 and this next upcoming fiscal year. So again, this is a multi-year program. So what I'm asking you for here today, as part of this compliance program, is not funding everything that we need to do to comply with that multi-year program. Further adjustments are going to be required in the future, but we have time for that. We have time to go through that as part of our overall broader water rate process, and this gets us through, allows us to make these commitments through the balance of this year. So it's a 35-cent cap adjustment, eliminating the 6-cent cap, and then a minor change in the Tier 2 rates that roughly shares this incremental water quality rate factor between Tier 1 and the Tier 2 customers. So just as a kind of overall picture, the average water system rate for fiscal year 10-11, that's before we started last summer's rate process and consideration, it was $3.83 per billing unit, or per 100 cubic feet. Last October, our board made an adjustment to our factor, and there's a 13.1 cent adjustment that's effective 11/12. So it just came into effect January. So that's something that's already been passed. It's already been done. It was done in October to be effective in here now in the month of January. Collectively, with that 35-cent cap adjustment we're talking about here, and that prior adjustment that was done last October, the average rate for this current fiscal year, 11/12, will be $3.59 per 100 cubic feet. So we're actually, with this adjustment, still actually this year lower than we were last year, and then it goes up by the amount by an amount that I described earlier. And that's shown graphically here on the next page, on page 8 of the graphic, the package you have in front of you. And this just shows here's the rate as it changed from quarter to quarter. Here's what the average was last year. Here's what the rate would be if we made no change. This blue piece on the top is what the proposed rate action is. And then this average line here is the average of the year with that top blue line change. So I think there's been a fair amount of discussion about how does this play into our overall water rates, and is this all there is? And the answer is no. It's not all there is. It's all there is. That's all we're asking for today. We still will be pursuing, and you will have before you and before full council in the weeks to come a more detailed assessment more broadly across it, that we will be looking for increased pipeline replacement to get back up closer to where we should be in replacing our aged pipeline. And then we will be coming back to you for an adjustment for what we call our local water supply program. It's to be consistent with our urban water management plan, and that's for greater conservation measures, more reclaimed water, and also cleaning up our San Fernando aquifer basin, the groundwater resources in there. So Those collectively will be back before you, and back before a review with the ratepayer advocate, assuming he gets confirmed, which I anticipate will happen soon. So the remainder that'll go forward. We also will be working on cleaning up, I don't know any better way to put it, but cleaning up our very convoluted water rate structure. And through that process, be refining it, making it much clearer, much more transparent, and all of that being reviewed by the ratepayer advocate for looking at the remainder of these funds and then cleaning up that water rate structure. And then we will be presenting to our board and a preliminary FY 12-13 budget that reflects those changes. And it'll be preliminary because it's going to be subject to the ultimate review of the rate adjustments, the full rate adjustments later in Q2 of this year. So that, in summary form, is the overview of what we're asking for you to act on today.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. Just to the benefit of the public, talk a little bit about the penalties that will be imposed upon us and the timeframes if these compliance dates are not met.
Sure. Jim McDaniel.
I'm Jim McDaniel, Senior Assistant General Manager for the water system. In the compliance agreement that we entered into with the California Department of Public Health, in order to get the extension beyond the 2009 deadline for bringing these reservoirs into compliance, we had to agree to a number of milestones, both interim milestones and final milestones, to remove the reservoirs from service, get them covered, or otherwise have them removed as open bodies of water from the system. The fines that we're looking at for noncompliance are $25,000 per day per incident, and because we have multiple reservoirs that we're talking, there's a potential for multiple incidences of that $25,000 a day. So it's fairly significant fines for noncompliance.
Okay. Next question is about the long-term 2 surface water treatment rule and what capital upgrades are needed to meet that.
The long-term 2 enhanced surface water treatment rule primarily applies to dealing with these open reservoirs. And these are reservoirs that store water that's already been treated at our filtration plant, and now it's the last storage place for the water before it goes into the distribution system and is delivered to customers. So you got water basically that's been treated. Now it's subject to sunlight, which causes algae to grow in the water, birds landing on it, dust blowing on it. And so the surface water treatment rule was designed to basically eliminate open bodies of water that contain treated water from the distribution system. So we've got 5 remaining reservoirs that fall into this category: the Silver Lake, Ivanhoe, Elysian, Upper Stone, and Los Angeles Reservoir. And so we've got compliance plans for each of those. They involve different things. Some of them involve constructing covers on the reservoir. Some of them involve new storage. At LA Reservoir, we're actually looking at a treatment alternative that would allow us to provide some additional treatment from the water coming from that reservoir to make it in compliance.
So let's talk a little bit about the pass-through billing cap from the existing, I think it's 50 cents per 100 cubic feet to 85 cents per 100 cubic feet. How much revenue does the department actually derive from this kind of an adjustment?
I'm Ann Santilli. I'm the interim chief financial officer. From this type of adjustment, we're expecting to raise approximately $39 million for the remainder of this fiscal year and $79 million for next fiscal year, and that will allow us some cash to go ahead and issue bonds and finance these $554 million of projects.
Okay, so then explain to me the Tier 2 base rates and how this maintains equity between tiers.
Well, what we were trying to do is minimize the amount of changes we were requesting. Water quality is embedded in the Tier 2 base rate. So we're adding 35 cents to the water quality cap, which is charged to Tier 1 customers, by increasing the Tier 2 base rate by the same amount. That's the closest way we can have equity between the tiers.
So then the million-dollar question is, for the average person, the average ratepayer, how much can they expect their bill will go up as a result of these proposed rate adjustments?
What, the average,
It's about $1.71
one
per month.
per,
Got it. Okay. All right. $1.71 per month.
per month for, on average, for all customers of residential class.
Residential, right?
Right, right.
Okay. Now, the next question is, I guess this goes to the CLA and the CAO. PA Consulting reviewed this rate proposal because the ratepayer advocate, he's almost here, but he's not here yet. Give me a summary of what their position is on this proposed rate adjustment.
Yes. Good morning, Ray Schreiner with the CEO's office. Yes, we have been working with PA Consulting for the last several months. We actually, as a sort of step back just a little bit, over the last several months, we have been working with the department and CLA to really dive down into this issue, and with the help of PA Consultant, they have been working with the department. We certainly have spent a number of meetings, meeting with the department weekly. I know PA has taken several trips up the hill, so to speak. We have gone through the rate model multiple times. So to answer your question, yes, PA did an extensive review of the proposal, both looking at the actual financial metrics, looking at the projects themselves, and making sure that they truly have done due diligence as far as what is needed to meet all compliance issues. Certainly, they have raised issues on future needs and rate increases, and looking at sort of the larger picture. But they have provided a report that was attached and provided recommendations as well that support the increase.
Okay. Now, the next question I need to ask you is about the Debt Reduction Trust Fund, because I know before Ron even came on board, this was an issue. And then why can't the Department of Water and Power use that money to address, part of what I'm going to get to in just a minute is, whenever we ask the ratepayer to pay an increase, we have to, I think, show them that we're controlling our costs, and we're controlling our health care costs, our operational costs, and so I'm going to get to that in just a minute once I give my other colleagues a chance to talk. But what I want to know is whether or not anyone has considered using the Debt Reduction Trust Fund to address some of the wage disparity issues between the Department of Water and Power and the city, to show the ratepayer and the public that we are containing our costs and doing it in an effective way. Has that been considered at all?
We've not considered using that because that's a fund that's remains and is held in place to provide sufficient financial security to help maintain our current bond ratings. You may have recalled that we recently actually got downgraded by Fitch on our water bonds out of concern for that. If we were able to use those funds for our future capital requirements, we absolutely would have done so.
Okay, we'll talk about that more later. Now, this is an interim rate adjustment associated with the current needs that are on the table for you now. Now, I'm surely you'll be coming back to council with a request for future rate adjustments. Do you have a current schedule for future rate requests at this time?
We have a tentative schedule, and in part that needs to get reviewed for the timing of Dr. Pickle, the anticipated ratepayer advocate. But we will be prepared around the end of February, early March to present. Now that we know that he's on board, and we can fine tune our timing of when we'd go forward, and some of the things I just mentioned in my previous discussion in terms of additional dollars for pipeline replacement, for our local water supply, that's the conservation, the groundwater cleanup, the recycled water and stormwater capture, will be things that will be coming before you, as well as the balance of the next 3 years of the water quality program expenditure. So we'll have all of that I would anticipate that assuming Dr. Pickle's ready to step in and has some support that he needs, that we would start that off in March. And the exact timeline for that, I expect it'll be a multi-month process to do that, the specific timeline of which we really need to work with him on.
Okay, Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. When it comes to the $1.71 per month, which is the average increase that the average consumer would be seeing their bill go up should this go through, how many HCFs is that in that 171?
The 171 is actually detailed on PA's consulting report. It's the average of all residential customer types. Now, for the department, our residential customer uses 12 billing units per month, and that would be a $1.44 per month increase, which we've detailed in the Department of Water and Power Board letter. But on page 10 of the PA, or page 5 of the PA report, there's a full summary showing customers using 0 to 3 to up to 50 plus per month.
Okay. And so my question is, does the department, have you broken out because I can anticipate at least one of my colleagues really drilling down, not in this committee at this moment, but when it gets to the council floor, drilling down on what is it going to cost our most low-income customers? What's going to be their rate change? So be ready to answer that question. Obviously, if you're a single senior on Social Security and you do qualify and you've applied for the relief that we afford our lowest income households, they're not consuming that amount of water. They're consuming probably a small fraction of that. So you better be ready to explain based on that average of that particular category of our lowest income customer, especially you might even want to break it down in low income family and low income senior, because that way if it comes down to 72 cents average rather than $1.71 or what have you, be ready to answer that question, because you're going to get attacked that, well, a senior can't afford $1.71 a month more in their bill, which I would agree, but that household is probably not typical of using that amount of water. So be ready for that. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Capone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You covered most of my points, but just a couple of follow-ups. Further to Mr. Cardenas's point, can you talk, Mr. Nichols, a little bit about some of the public outreach that the department has done around this proposal, building up to this point?
Well, it's really been in two phases. Certainly last summer, everything that we're talking about here in terms of costs were a portion of that which we reviewed in some 35 public sessions last summer, which included physical workshops as well as a couple of online webinars outreach. We worked through a number of community-based organizations as well, and business organizations, faith-based organizations, and environmental groups to review this, get a lot of Q&A with regard to this, and then subsequently came out and with additional follow-up meetings on this specific item on the matter. It was been before our board on 3 different occasions leading up to today.
So following all that outreach, contact with over 1,000 participants in this process from the public, this proposal now has the support of LA Chamber, the Central City Association, Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils, and I think other neighborhood council organizations as well.
That's correct, as well as Youth Policy Institute, and like I said, the LA Chamber, Central City Association, and the LA Times has supported it as well.
As well as the Daily News.
And the Daily News, correct.
So while there hasn't been a ratepayer advocate in place to review this, while there hasn't been a ratepayer advocate in place to review this, the public process has been fairly robust, and it seems to have developed a pretty wide consensus among stakeholders who don't often agree about DWP issues that this component of it, at least, is quite necessary. Now, when the ratepayer advocate is confirmed, is on board, is implemented, the ratepayer advocate will be engaged in the broader discussion about water rate increases for the wider list of infrastructure improvements that are certainly going to be necessary. And as part of that process, there's nothing that will prevent him from considering the propriety of this interim rate increase as part of the larger package. Isn't that right?
Well, in fact, I think it would be incumbent upon him to do that, because inasmuch as this is a piece of funding a multi-year program in our water quality program, he's going to have to get comfortable with the totality of that, of the water quality compliance program and the other items we're talking about, wherein we anticipate he'll go back and take a look at this as well to see how this fits into the context of that. And if for any reason there's something that arises from that review, that can get sorted out in the overall rate determination in the weeks to come.
Exactly. Now, conversely, if we were to choose not to go forward with this interim measure, what impacts might that have on the department's bonding ability for the larger package of infrastructure improvements, water supply improvements, water quality improvements, all of those things that I think the public widely recognizes as being very, very urgent?
Councilmember, we would end up not awarding this next contract on the Headworks Reservoir and put that in abeyance, and we would then be starting a process of being out of compliance with the California Department of Public Health compliance program.
And then beyond the water quality improvements that are at issue here, would there be a downward pressure on the department's ability to bond for future projects as well, aside from these water quality?
For all other projects, it would, in terms of our, the rest of the water quality program, our local water supply program, and for our pipe replacement program as well, correct? Okay.
I hesitate to ask, but one specific thing that's kind of leaping out to me is the shade ball program at LA Reservoir. And I know we went through this experience with Silver Lake. What can you talk about why that's important, why the choice was made about shade balls, and why shade balls cost $30 million?
Right. We'd originally planned for a different compliance strategy for Los Angeles Reservoir. One of the problems is Los Angeles Reservoir is by far the largest reservoir that we have. It's also the key remaining large reservoir that we have in the system. We've taken Encino Reservoir out of service, Lower Stone Canyon's no longer in service, Hollywood Reservoir is no longer in service, and shortly Silver Lake Reservoir will no longer be in service. So we don't have the option of taking it out of service. We have to be able to use it. The original strategy called for us to put floating covers on LA Reservoir, and when I say covers, the idea is that we would have to split the reservoir into two basins and put floating covers on each of the two basins. In order just to take the reservoir out of service to construct all that, we'd have to build a new reservoir on the property to serve the city during that process. It was a huge earth-moving operation, very expensive. It was estimated to cost over $600 million. We decided to really take a look and do some value engineering on this and try to find a more efficient way of dealing with this. And we came up with the idea of, rather than full-on refiltering the water, do an interim level of treatment on the water with ultraviolet light disinfection. One of the things we also needed to do, though, however, was lessen the need to add chemical, basically chlorine, to the reservoir for algae control. Through our experience with the shade balls that we used for bromate control by shading the reservoir and breaking the sunlight component of the water degradation, staff came up with the idea of doing a combination of shade balls and ultraviolet light disinfection for Los Angeles Reservoir. The combined cost of these projects all in will probably be about half the cost of the $600 million plus project that we had before. So even including the cost of the balls, we're still looking at probably about a $300 million savings on the overall project cost. The balls cost what they do. There's nothing particularly tricky about them. The one thing that are different about these balls than we've used in the past is due to the high winds in the area. We did extensive wind tunnel testing on this, and we determined that by partially filling the balls with water to weight them down, we can deal with any kind of wind problems, so we don't end up with balls blowing out of the reservoir onto the freeway or something like that. And that proved out in the wind tunnel testing. So there is some additional cost because in the manufacturing process, water has to be added into the balls. We did extensive outreach on this, though, because we wanted to try to bring this project back to California and hopefully back to the LA area. And I think we're about ready to bring, if we can get our financial situation in order, we could bring this contract to Board of Water and Power Commissioners, and it looks like we have a local vendor that's going to be able to produce these. So that's a good news story on this one.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. LeBlanc?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just in the review, this has been going on about 20 years, basically, since 1990s, early when they discussed this here, when, and even 10 years ago was the Rowena Reservoir.
Surface water treatment rule
80s?
compliance has been going on. I started the department in 1982. This will be my 30th year.
30th year.
The very first projects I worked on had to do with some of the earlier reservoirs, bringing them into compliance. So this has been a multi-decade
And then
project.
making decision on this and the cost factor, and make sure water quality is number one on this issue here. I'm glad that we're looking at a local vendor. It absolutely is important. It's insane that we would spend $30 million on plastic balls when you could go down to the end of the pier and get a plastic toy. We could figure out how to make the balls here. It makes a lot of sense. I understand that on the quality issue, too, the testing, because I don't know, and I just want to say this, there's a lot of words here. I don't think anybody's going to read this. I think you need to have, and what's another word for bullet points? Ray, you're good.
Talking points.
Talking points. What it means, and tell people about this. If you could look at a mini mall, you'll see a donut shop, you'll see a Thai massage, you'll see a water store, and then a little liquor store. You know, I mean, why are people having to buy water? Because they don't believe in our water. And I want them to believe in our water. I'd like to see more public water fountains somewhere, especially out in front of the JFB, at least one. Because I think that I was in the city of Portland once, and there was a lot of water. I know they got the big Columbia right there, so that makes an easy difference. But just tell the story, and they don't see all this here. You know, that's a lot for people to read. And as you know how we go, why they changed the name of Kentucky Fried Chicken to KFC is because they wanted to do it. And everybody's now, I don't know, somebody else just went by initials. You know what I'm saying? That has to be done. And there's a great history here, because we're going to take Silver Lake out of service. We're able to save the reservoir for the beauty of the natural resources. DWP should get an A+ for their resources protection, both in the Owens Valley and the mitigation that you've done the last 10 years, and even in Los Angeles at Chatsworth Reservoir and at Silver Lake Complex, the Hollywood Complex. All of this need to be done, but I think we got to tell the story a little bit better. I absolutely support this because infrastructure, the big river supply conduit is 70 years old. People don't realize 70 years old, you have to replace it, and we don't have the money, we have a problem. And water is all you need in life, and relationships. That's the only thing. We don't have a city attorney here, do you? Where's the city attorney? What are the two things you need in life?
Lawyers and more lawyers.
No, man. That's why there's a sanitation department. That's where the sanitation department. You need water and relationships. Thank you.
All right, so thank you for that bit of levity, Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We do have two speaker cards before we deliberate. Christine Peters and Ann Nguyen from Central City Association, if you would come up or let them have a seat up there. Good, okay.
You can start.
Either one. Let's go. Either one.
Thanks. We've been
How are
waiting
you?
23 years. Good morning.
How are you?
Christine Peters, President, Citizens Committee to Save Elysian Park. Thank you, council members, for having this special hearing. There are so many things to address on this issue. $1.71 a month for an average household. Low income would be significantly less. What we're not looking at is Elysian Reservoir. We have requested consistently from the Department of Water and Power to make sure that Elysian Reservoir is included in this rate water adjustment package. To date, they have ignored us and not done this. We have been working for 23 years with DWP through a mediation process that was started by the Citizens Committee. The whole reason why Silver Lake, the Headworks, Ivanhoe, Upper Stone, Lower Stone, Hollywood, have been beautified and have received quality water improvements, aesthetically pleasing to the people who live around them, is because of the lawsuit that we started 23 years ago. For some reason, Elysian Reservoir is last and least in this issue. We have been working with DWP to do a landscape buried tank to create 14 acres of open space with recreational opportunities for the inner city children and families who live around Elysian Park. These are not the rich and powerful. These are hardworking, working-class families, diverse backgrounds. These are people who don't have access to parks. Elysian Park is their park. They live downtown. They live in Chinatown. They live in El Sereno. They live in Elysian Valley. They live in Echo Park. They live all around Elysian Park. They have no access to open reservoirs. They don't have a beautiful view of Silver Lake. They don't get to go to Ivanhoe. Rowena has a fence around it. No one can see it except the rich folks who live up on the hill around it. We want Elysian Park's reservoir included in this rate adjustment package. If you do the math the same way the CLA did it, it'll be 26 cents a month to include our reservoir in the package. If we don't include it in the package, then we're going to have a 7-acre rubber cover on what was once a beautiful water body inside a 600-acre regional park that serves the inner city. There's no equity in this. This is a parity issue. The poor residents of the city of Los Angeles deserve everything that the same people have been getting in the Hollywood Hills, in Mandeville Canyon. We deserve the same treatment. So we're asking that you include Elysian Reservoir in this package and amend the ordinance. Thank you. And I'm going to submit certain things.
All right, yeah, you can give it to the clerk. Okay.
Good morning. Ann Nguyen with the Central City Association. I'll keep this very brief. In the past few years, we've typically found ourselves on the opposite side of DWP on water and power issues, but this morning we are on board. We represent the city's largest property owners, and slight rate increases do equate to millions of dollars of increased costs. And we understand we all have to find that delicate balance between managing the financial hardship that this may impose on our ratepayers, but also giving DWP the means to continue operating and providing quality services. We've had a fair opportunity to weigh the pros and cons of this. We're on board. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Now, a couple of things I want to put on the table before we close this item off. I have mixed feelings about it. There are a few things that I want to put out there that would lead to my voting for an approval, but I can go either way at this point, because I did want to be consistent, very consistent, in waiting for the ratepayer advocate to come on board. And I have to also thank, I need to thank PA Consulting, because they carried us through some pretty heavy times, and even as of today, to reach this day. And so, you know, you filled a huge analytical gap for us, to bring comfort and helping us determine how to vote. But I want to put this out here. Number one, I do want the department to prepare to provide us with information, and even though I won't be the chairperson, this is something that I will pursue as an individual and elected official, a member of the council body. So I'm putting my mark on this now. When the next rate adjustment comes in March, I want and will do a motion to require a full assessment from the Department of Water and Power and the new ratepayer advocate on the use of the debt reduction trust fund to mitigate this rate adjustment and to maintain lower rates. Secondly, I'm going to put in a motion downstairs that will recognizes the mission of the Department of Water and Power to deliver quality water and power at a reasonable rate, and that the funding for infrastructure and maintenance is an ongoing issue, and it goes to the economic development and the viability of our city, and that, yes, we have to be in compliance with applicable state and federal mandates as appropriate. But the kicker for me is this. We, I think, have to do it in in a manner that's consistent with the principles of sound management of public funds. And I think it's very appropriate that we, or I, and I'll take the hit on this one for now, the Department of Water and Power begin in earnest to control the structural costs associated with employment and operational costs. I think that if we demonstrate that to the public and the ratepayer, I think it would be a much easier time going forward to convince people that we basically have done everything that we can to do cost containment, to create parity, while at the same time we ask the ratepayer to basically pay a rate increase. Now, we don't demonstrate to the public that we are controlling structural employment costs, then I feel that we don't provide any assurance to the public that their precious funds are being managed effectively. And for example, we can talk about the health plans and comparatively how DWP employees do much better than other civilian city employees, for example. And that's not the only area where the Department of Water and Power is not on parity with the city of Los Angeles. You can talk about contributions, you can talk about pension tiers and that sort of thing. So that'll be in a motion that I will prepare and introduce downstairs. Because I'm looking for ultimately, I think a show of very good faith to the ratepayer is the additional creation of a pension tier for new employees of the Department of Water and Power that is much more in line with basically what the future holds for all of us and is on parity with what we're doing here in the city. But again, a pension system that we should be creating that is something that is sustainable and realistic. So with that, I'm going to put that on the record now on these several points that I've raised. I think what I'm going to do at this point for myself is I am going to vote to disapprove right now in this committee, see what I get with these motions. I think it's on council tomorrow. Am I correct?
Item 1.
And then we'll talk. I'll talk with Mr. Nichols over the next 24 hours. And I really do have to, I wanted to talk to you last night, but I have a friend in the hospital and it was pretty serious. So I'm sorry we didn't speak. Because I don't like to, surprise people. But this is just for today, this point in time. I think we can work through this, but I need to get some absolute assurances that we can get this done. So I'm gonna vote to disapprove with these appendages that I have just stated for the record. And if you will, my colleagues would like to go ahead and you want to do a roll call or
to approve the report.
Okay.
I second it. I just wanted to say I want to talk about the Elysian Park issue at some time to try to solve that issue there. And also, thank you.
All right. So we have a move to approve. I'm going to vote no. Do we have?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that's 3 ayes, 1 no, and then we'll see you all downstairs.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Public comment? General public comment?
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. Is there anybody here who wishes to comment on items that are not on the agenda? This is the time to come forward to do so.
And
Seeing
Madam
none?
Chair,
Yes.
If there's not, Madam Chair, just if I might take one moment, because I was a little late in arriving, I just wanted to say on our mutual last meeting of this committee, what a pleasure it's been for me to be able to serve with you on this committee for the last 2 years, and as your vice chair most recently. This has been a tremendously tumultuous time, and you have led with grace and skill, I think, and achieved some remarkable things through this committee, including advancing the feed-in tariff, reforms to our solar incentive program, and our integrated resources plan. Of course, the creation of the Office of Public Accountability, which is going to dramatically change the direction that the city goes in, I think, in handling its utility. more important than anything, I've seen in the 2 years that I've been here, a fundamental shift in the culture at the Department of Water and Power from when I arrived until today. And that I attribute to many factors, including the arrival of Mr. Nichols and many other things, but I also attribute it to your insistence, your constant insistence in this committee on transparency and public accountability on the part of the department. For that, I want to thank you, and I think all people in Los Angeles owe you a debt of gratitude.
Can I? Yeah.